Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, the DRFBets race of the day for Monday, August the 27th, race number 8 at the Spa. We're going 1 mile on the inner turf. It's the Better Talk Now Stakes for 3-year-olds. You can bet the card, you can bet this race with your very own DRFBets account. Get 10 times the sign-up bonus when you sign up for one of these accounts. DRF.com/bet is where you need to go. Here's the field for the Better Talk Now. You can download free formulator past performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Let's handicap together in post position order, beginning with the number 1, Strike Power, making his turf debut. This is a horse who is a graded stakes winner sprinting on dirt, graded stakes placed routing on dirt. But his last 3 races, I wonder if the connections went a little bit too far on the Derby trail, one too many in the Florida Derby.
I mean, maybe it's too early to say and premature, and maybe I'm a little out of line for bringing this up, but I think this could be one of those classic cases where we'll look back sometime next year and people will say, remember when Strike Power debuted and he looked as impressive as he did going one turn, and they continued to run him at longer distances than he wanted, and not only at longer distances, but just setting obscene pace situations on the front end, and he finally paid for it. I understand you brought it up. There's a little bit of turf as far as the pedigree is concerned. I can't help but think this might be one of those instances we're going to look back and say, what could he have turned into had he been handled the right way? And I don't mean this as a knock against anyone. Everybody gets Derby fever. But he's always felt like a sprinter to me, and he just continues to run just these giant pace situations, and he's disintegrating at the end of them.
But he's getting the class relief that he might need. He draws a cozy inside post in this 2-turn mile. He's probably going to be on the lead with an alert break, and you mentioned the pedigree. Speightstown 13% first-time turf, Dam grade 3 placed going long on the turf, and the Dam a half to a multiple graded stakes winner on a synthetic surface, Adriano. So Strike Power has the pedigree to get the distance. Unfortunately for him, the Timeform US pace projector, not kind. Red bar indicates a fast pace. They got Strike Power out there on the lead, but he may have to go too quick to get it.
And he's going to be going 2 turns for the first time. There's no guarantee that's, I shouldn't say for the first time. He's going to try turf for the first time, but we've seen he clearly, so far, 2 turns is not really necessarily his friend. He ran a bang-up race in that Fountain of Youth, but I think that was more just a product of how that race unfolded. If there is a legitimate pace here, 2 turns, I'm not convinced that's his friend.
He's a talented, fast horse. He's not my cup of tea at a short price, trying turf for the first time. The number 2 is CV, who looked like he was getting good for trainer Kelly Breen over the winter. He won 2 of his first 3 starts on turf. The only loss coming over good going, and he disappeared after February the 10th. What's worrisome to me was he was actually entered at Monmouth on August the 2nd and was a vet scratch. Now, he's worked quickly twice since that race, but his good races have come when on the lead, and you got to think he's not getting it from Strike Power.
I was going to say, I mean, if anything, doesn't it just play into the idea of that fast pace and that red bar that Timeform has projected, where those inside 2 horses, it feels like both of them, they have one way to go, and that's to the front end. And if that's the case, I think all it does is ensure that there's going to be a pretty hot pace up on the front end to help the horses coming from off of it.
And if there is a hot pace, I think Combatant is a very sneaky horse. He made his turf debut last time out in the Grade 2 Hall of Fame. He caught a yielding turf course that I'm not sure he liked. I think he was a little bit closer to that runaway speed Gadoo through faster fractions than the connections wanted. And he really didn't fold that badly. He finished a good solid 5th. This is a horse that kept top company on the dirt early this year. My only concern is after 10 starts, are we going to see that much more improvement? But he might finally have found the spot and the pace scenario and a firm turf course that he wants.
Yeah, and as far as the improvement piece is concerned, generally I would agree with you. After 10 starts, where's the big move going to come from? The only reason I kind of hold out hope is the idea that he's only tried turf twice in his career, and maybe this is what he's wanted all along, and perhaps we haven't seen his best considering his career debut was on the grass and then he caught just that bog in the most recent start. If he gets that firm going at a mile with some pace, maybe you do get a career best effort. I picked him 4th.
Roaming Union has entered main track only. We'll move on to Rose's Vision, sort of a stranger here. 2nd in the Toronto Cup, most recently going a 1-turn 9 furlongs at Woodbine, finishing ahead of Nipawa, who came back to win the 3rd jewel of the Canadian Triple Crown, the Breeders' Stakes, with an 84 Beyer speed figure. Rose's Vision has been good on synth, has been good on turf, and has the tactical speed to be able to maybe tuck right into a nice spot if the 1 and the 2 go out for the lead.
I like Rose's vision here. I picked him second. I think he's got a big chance. You brought up Nipawa. And really, when you break down all of the turf races, I think all of them have been good. He's only 2 of 7, but he's run bang-up races in most of them anyway. You go back to that run at Keeneland. Thought he had a perfect stalking trip, but it was a very, very fine effort. You saw what he did. Broke his maiden at Gulfstream in February. And that most recent run, the Toronto Cup, thought he ran just fine that day. You brought up that little tactical speed that he brings to the table. I think he can sit just off of that hot pace, get the jump on the closers. We'll find out. I think he's very interesting in here.
I wonder if our friends at West Point Stable got a little bit of a bargain with the next horse, Corot. This was a $925,000 yearling who won his most recent start going 7 furlongs on synthetic, went through the auction ring again, and they got him for $155,000. I think this horse has always shown a little bit of ability. He's going to make his turf debut here. I think he's bred well enough to handle it, and I think he can come with a late run under Javier at a decent price.
If you draw a line through those 2 dirt starts that are sort of in the midst of the bookends, you're looking at a horse that broke his maiden just now by 6 and change. That was over a synthetic surface. I know it was in June, but the career debut, he was basically right there, and he got a little bit tired at the end going 2 turns. This is a horse, I think he has some ability on whether it's synthetic or turf. I think it'll translate. And I agree with you. I don't see any reason why he can't be a player at a big number.
I like the cutback in distance for our next horse, Have Added. A winner 2 starts back at 1 mile and an 1/8, but boy, Flavien Prat gave him a beautiful ride that day, sitting second off of a pace setter. He went after that horse, opened up a big lead, and he was getting late at the end of that race. He just held on. They tried the Hall of Fame at 1 mile and a 16th, and again, I think he was one of several horses that just didn't like A, that turf condition, and B, that Raging Bull's a pretty nice horse.
He certainly is. I kind of look at it the exact same way, where realistically of his 3 most recent starts, I only take one of them at face value, and that's that sort of middle race, the 85 buyer. And if you think that that's actually what you're going to get from him, he's a major threat in a spot like this. You go back to that last race at Keeneland back in October when he broke his maiden. You're off for a long, long time. Give him the benefit of the doubt for that first start, and then you brought up that Hall of Fame. I'm not going to hold the yielding turf against him. Cutting back to 1 mile, I think this is what he wants. And again, he's another one. I think he's interesting.
Our next 2 runners, both trained by Bill Mott, both adding blinkers. We'll begin with Irish Territory. This horse was good enough to be graded stakes placed behind Catholic Boy as a maiden in his second start at Saratoga last year, the With Anticipation. I'm not going to hold that first race at Keeneland against him. Some horses don't handle Keeneland. It was a layoff. He was in against Raging Bull. I liked his race at Churchill Downs 2 starts back, and the Pennine Ridge, throw it out. He's not good enough to deal with Catholic Boy right now. This is an interesting horse getting the right pace scenario, and I think the blinkers are going to help him.
I do wonder if the blinkers are sort of the key for him, where he's always hinted at some ability. Admittedly, I've chased him numerous times, and maybe I'll chase him again in this race here. The most recent start, the Pennine Ridge, he is the horse getting the class relief of all class relief, because like you say, not only was it Catholic Boy, but you've got to analyze it in there. You've got Channel Cat, who earned a 90 in his next start, and the 4th place finisher even earned an 84. You see that he finished ahead of Untamed Domain in that With Anticipation last year. I just think it's been a matter of getting the right circumstances for this horse, and perhaps putting the shades on. Maybe that's the thing that's going to kind of get him a little bit closer and a little bit more focused.
I'll go with Westerland, the other Mott horse in here. This is a horse that's run with headgear overseas. He raced with cheek pieces and had some success with them. Didn't race with them in his first 2 starts for Mott. Won the Manila, a race that had no pace. If you recall, Up the Ante just stole that race on the front end. Westerland came with a solid enough run to finish 3rd. And then in the Hall of Fame over yielding ground, he was trying to come from last on the rail, and that just wasn't going to work out. 3rd start of the form cycle, blinkers on, he gets some pace, he'll be a price. May not be as naturally talented as Irish Territory, but I think there's something here with Westerland, a beautifully bred son of Frankel.
Again, he's the kind of horse where I don't think you take either of his 2 stateside starts really at face value. I think you look at that Manila and say, needed a race probably to get back to fitness. Unfortunately, caught that yielding going, draw a line through that. Blinkers go on now. And like you say, I thought it was interesting that he had them with those last 2 starts with Gosden. Now they put him back on. I think he's interesting at what should be. The good news is with him, he's probably going to be a very, very square price in here.
Might even be the longest shot on the board. Prioritize has won 2 of 3 starts for trainer H. James Bond. Thought he got a nice pace setup last time out. Those red color-coded time form U.S. fractions indicate the pace was hot up front, and this horse might have benefited. Nice to see, though, that the 5th place horse came back to earn an 83 Beyer speed figure in his next start. I think he has to improve slightly from a Beyer standpoint, but he's so lightly raced, he's got potential.
He certainly does. I guess the only thing, if you wanted to try to, I don't want to say make a case against him because he's going to be a very square price and he's not one of the favorites, but that run 2 starts back, it felt like that was the best field that he's faced. You see Raging Bull was in there, Morrison as well, who's a nice horse in his own right, and he just didn't cut the mustard that day. I think it's an instance where he just needs to prove that he's actually this good against this caliber of company.
Strike Power, the horse to catch, arguably the horse to beat. We're going to try to beat him. Let's take a look at our top picks. In Mott, we trust. You go with the 8 Irish Territory. I go with the 9 Westerland. We're both hoping for similar trips off of a hot pace, and at least we get a clear run at some point.
Yeah, if they throw it down early, which again the pace projector thinks that, I happen to think that, I believe you do as well. If they go at it early, I think we're going to be the horses that are coming from the back of the pack, and those blinkers going on, that to me might be the difference maker for a horse like Irish Territory or even Westerland.
Give me numbers.
8, 5, 10, 3. I'm throwing Strike Power out altogether.
I'm throwing them out as well. I'm going 9, 2, 6. I'm interested to see if Carote is going to improve in his first start for this new barn. I'd like to use him in multiple race wagers along with Westerland. It's the Monday DRFBets race of the day. It's the Better Talk Now stakes. You can play it with DRFBets. Sign up, get 10 times the bonus. It's an easy deal where you bet 20 and you get 200. DRF.com/bet is where you need to go. Approximate post time for the Better Talk Now Monday's DRFBets race of the day, 5:02 Eastern. Good luck.